Does this feel cult-like at all to you?
No, not at all. In fact, what's cult-like to me is watching the mainstream media and listening to the existing administration.
That Trump supporter doesn't think that the MAGA movement is a cult. In fact, he said not at all when asked by that reporter. But wait till you see what he said just moments before claiming he's not a member of a cult.
Tell me one thing that he did to make your life better when he was president.
Gas prices, for one, economy is much better.
Do you feel the improving economy? Because all the metrics we talk about for the economy, all the economists are saying the economy is on the rebound, historic lows in unemployment right now. Does that impact you?
As a matter of fact, I don't believe any of that. It's not what I witness, so I don't believe it.
And did you believe, I guess, pre-pandemic, because that's kind of a blip, but pre-pandemic when President Trump was in office, did you believe the metrics then?
Uh, Not from the mainstream media, but anything that he said generally in his administration, I believed.
So if it was coming from him, it was gospel.
I'm Rayy Vana, and welcome back to Rebel HQ. This man is absolutely, definitely, 100% not in a cult. However, he doesn't believe anything he hears in the news and only believes things that he hears Trump say. But come on, folks, that's not cult-like. That sort of undying allegiance to your leader where you only believe the words coming out of his mouth and from nowhere else. But that man was far and away not the only MAGA supporter at that rally who both believed that they were not in a cult and was 100% definitely in a cult. Take this woman, for example.
What do you tell people who think the following of Trump and MAGA is kind of a cult?
No, it doesn't follow that at all. If you look at the definition of a cult, they take away your rights, they take away your choices, they control your finances. I don't think this is cult. I think that people are learning. We're digging deeper than we ever have before. We're asking hard questions that we weren't asking for the last 30, 40, 50 years. It's not a cult. We want answers. We want to know the truth about what's going on. And we're looking for a leader who will expose the corruption, the Epstein corruption, the Hunter Biden corruption, all of that. You know, we want to see where our tax dollars are really going. You know, when I was growing up, my parents had one day to go vote. They did a paper ballot. They walked in, they showed their ID. There was no discussion.
Isn't it better to have more dates to vote, more people get an opportunity to vote?
No, I do not agree with that whatsoever.
Let's start from the beginning where she says it's not a cult because Donald Trump hasn't taken away her rights, her finances, or her choices. Let's start with point number 1, rights. Donald Trump appointed the necessary Supreme Court justices in order to overturn Roe v. Wade and effectively end a woman's right to choose in a lot of states across this country. Now to point number 2, finances. Donald Trump has been indicted over 91 times now, and is he paying for his own legal fees? Absolutely not. He is using the money of credulous rubes like this woman and his other campaign supporters in order to fund his legal fees and his legal defense, despite bragging about how rich he is. And then finally, let's move on to her last point, choices. She claims that she's not in a cult because they don't want to restrict people's choices, and then goes on to describe that she desperately wants to restrict people's choices when it comes to voting. And why does the Republican Party want their supporters to be echoing these talking points? Because the less people participating in democracy, the better for the Republican Party. They don't want people to vote. Because if everybody voted, they would never hold power ever again. And finally, let's take a look at one more example that perfectly paints the picture of the MAGA cult Trump has created among his supporters.
What do you say to people who say that this is a cult?
I think the deep state's a cult.
What can you define what the deep state is?
Yeah, people who, the original 13 families, it starts from there.
Can you tell me who you mean in the back in the colonies?
Oh, no, don't try. No, not.
No, I meant the 13, because the 13 colonies.
The original 13 families, the Rothschilds, the Astors, all the big money, okay? We know that that's where it all comes from. And they've all capitulated to the almighty dollar. And there's just way too much corruption, and we the people are going to going to change that. We're going to fix it.
Before I get into every insane thing that woman said, can we get a close up of that car behind her? Yeah, definitely not cult-like at all. Just multiple images of Donald Trump, a picture of him marrying Melania, an image of his boat parade, and I'm assuming the faces of the car's owners wearing MAGA hats. Totally normal, not cult-like behavior whatsoever. Now back to the insane woman who was talking about the 13 families? I don't even know what that is. But whatever it is, I'm sure it is an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, because of course it is. This is QAnon. And I think some part of that woman knows that she's in a cult because she didn't want to answer the question. She walked away from the reporter, attempting to avoid what he asked her. Because the only correct response to, are Trump supporters in a cult, is a simple yes. Yes, they are in a cult. A cult in which Donald Trump, their leader, can do no wrong. He can tell no lie, despite the many, many well-documented lies of his. He is the wealthiest man on earth, despite that obviously not being true, and him sucking his supporters dry financially. And the Republican Party is going to rely on these crazies in the 2024 election. So it is up to us to ensure that someone who's rambling about the 13 families or the owner of that crazy car do not decide who is going to be in charge of the government of the United States of America.